Welcome back to the Reboot Era, where we explore stories of resilience, reinvention, and the tools that are shaping the future of work. Before we dive in, a quick heads up for job seekers. I've partnered with JobHire.ai, a platform that will apply to jobs for you, even while you're sleeping. This August 2025, you can get 30% off any plan with code DRAY30, DRAY30. Check the footer of this episode for the details and the link to make sure you get your discount. And yes, if you don't get an interview in 15 days, you'll get your money back. Now let's get into the episode. Today's guest is Dan Sanchez, better known as Danchez on LinkedIn, an AI marketer who's been ahead of the curve in embracing artificial intelligence. From navigating layoffs to building authority in a brand new field, Dan shares how AI transformed his career, the tools he swears by, and how you can start using them no matter where you're at in your journey. Let's go chat with Dan.
I'm Dan Sanchez. My friends call me Danchez. And if you can't tell from this big old sign, because this is an audio podcast, I'm an AI marketer. Yeah, I'm one of those people running around on LinkedIn talking about AI. Sometimes I sound like, Chicken Little talking about the sky is falling, but I honestly do believe that AI is going to be a big deal. Maybe a year and a half ago, I feel like I saw the writing on the wall. And when I looked up at all the things that I was doing, I'm like, man, what's the big thing that's coming next? Because I feel like the digital marketing playbook, the one that I'd spent the last 10, 12 years mastering and perfecting across channels and crushing it on, just wasn't working as well anymore. It just wasn't getting the same returns that it once did. So when I started looking for what's that next big thing? I was like, you know what? It's going to freaking be AI. And it's not a channel, but it's going to change everything. And a year and a half ago, there weren't a lot of resources on it. ChatGPT had been out for a year, but still there was hardly any authority figures on it. There was no best practices on it. And when I went looking to read books about it, because that's what I do, I got a big bookshelf behind me. I go and read. I'm a reader. I will go and find every freaking book written on a topic. I will read them all, every single one. I've done it multiple times. And there weren't any on AI. There just weren't. And everything that had been published was from before ChatGPT, so they're all out of date. So I was like, well, if it has to be, then I guess it's up to me. I'd been a podcaster, so I started a new podcast called The AI Driven Marketer and just started interviewing anybody and everybody doing anything cool or remotely interesting with AI just to learn. I started experimenting aggressively, trying to figure stuff out. And that led to me becoming, I don't know, I don't want to say an authority, but somebody who is helping probably a few hundred people with the podcast now on multiple times a week with episodes and on LinkedIn, trying to navigate this massive shift that's taking place with AI. Now it's a little bit more obvious that AI is going to be a big thing. More and more people are adopting it. But back when I started, people were still like, ChatGPT is cool, but... So now here we are.
Yeah. Well, Danchez, that's lovely. I wish I had a name where I could do that, but I unfortunately don't. And are you saying that when you graduated college or started your career in marketing, you didn't just start in AI marketing? I don't know how old you are, so I'm not sure how long you've been doing this.
Yeah, I'm 37. I started as, I don't know, I graduated high school and didn't know exactly what I wanted to do and kind of round up. I wanted to go to art school, but that seemed risky. I'm a millennial, so millennials are art school sounds expensive. That sounds like a lifetime of servitude to my student loans and maybe not getting a job. So I eventually worked my way into graphic design and then transitioned from graphic design into marketing as it became apparent that marketers are the ones who make the design choices. And you're like, frick, I want to make the choices. So I became a marketer. And now I understand why they made their choices. And I've become a lot less romantic about the style and all that kind of stuff. But then, yeah, it was right around the time of digital marketing, 2010, 2012, right when social media and Facebook was starting to become a thing. And CEOs were like, social? What? I don't want to tell people what I ate for lunch. That's dumb. And nobody even knew what best practices were for social media at one time. Now it's obvious. Just tell your audience how to do their job better if you're selling B2B, right? Or find the target demo and help them do the thing that they want to do, whether it's aspirational or a lifestyle. Educate them or entertain them. Pick one. Now it's obvious. Back then it wasn't. So I was that young kid trying to figure things out and stair-step some other marketers in the process because I learned all the technical things first. And again, that was the playbook that I learned. I was really good at digital marketing, from paid to social to SEO, crushed SEO in a bunch of different jobs that I'd been in. to email marketing, automation, CRM, integrating it with call centers and sales and all that kind of stuff. I'd had some big wins across multiple channels. But again, like 2022 coming 2023, things started flipping and they stopped working as well as they used to. They got more expensive on the paid front, got a little bit more noisy on the organic front, harder to stand out. Everyone's starting to do it now. And that's when AI started to really stand out.
I like that you're able to recognize that and make that shift proactively in order to continue to be relevant and do great things in the world. I feel like it's very popular right now in 2025 with a lot of layoffs that are going on, that people are maybe not realizing quite yet the power of AI, but they're realizing the potential of AI and trying to make those shifts that seem a little bit more reactive than proactive. I think there are still people who, in certain industries, they are being proactive about it. But in tech right now, there's this whole thing about a lot of tools that come out, ChatGPT, Gemini, other local chatbots. They can do that kind of assistant, program manager, project manager, 70% of their job. And people are like, wow, I didn't take the time to understand what these are. And now they are trying, but they're doing it without a job.
Yeah. Well,
so
now they got
tough.
the time. Better. I won't even call it late. Honestly, I don't think it's late at all. I think we're literally just starting. I think a year or two from now, we will look back to this time period and be like, oh, those were the chatbot years.
Yeah.
Of AI. Because now we're AI, it's like, I don't even think about chatbot anymore, hardly ever. I just talk to it and it goes and does stuff for me. Or at least I have 3 different versions of it and does stuff for me. Or maybe it's just one voice and it just goes off and does things like Jarvis. I don't know. I think that's really only like a year from now, that'll probably be like maybe not the main way we interact with AI, but a primary way we do it. It's just happening fast. So
yeah,
it's early.
I think people will love that and they want to hear all about those things and all the tea you have about AI. That's why I wanted you here. But I did want to quickly share that this podcast largely around layoffs, success stories, how to differentiate yourself, just career stuff, largely pivoting, right? And doing something different, finding your self-identity. But there is a component around AI and how you're leveraging it, what you know about it, what you're doing. And I came across your profile mainly because you have a ton of followers, you have AI in the title, and I was like, this, I feel like would resonate with so many people who are currently stuck. They don't know what to do. They don't know tools names. And I want the gossip from you. I want you to tell us all the things you've learned in 40 minutes.
Let me back up a little bit and get into some of the juicy parts. Like, how did he, when I saw the writing on the wall, it wasn't just out of coincidence. It was actually out of a low point in my career that I actually saw, and it got triggered by a layoff. In fact, I won't even call it a layoff. I got fired. Like they did not want me at the company for a number of different reasons. I'd left Sweetfish, which is a podcast agency. I was doing really well there. And I got hired at a startup, and they particularly wanted me because I specialized in audience growth, which was exciting. I wanted to work with them. They wanted to work with me. I don't know what it was. I think I did not get it's not that I didn't get along. The CEO and I saw things very differently. And when have a very marketing driven CEO, that could be a problem. But eventually they saw like a builder buy. They were going to build out their own audience growth systems within months of me getting there. And then they decided they wanted to buy it instead, and they let me go, which was sucked.
This is the new place that you went to.
Yeah, I went to go work at this tech startup.
Okay.
And instead of them building out an audience organically with me building it, they went and bought a podcast network. And I was like, okay. And then they let me go. It's funny. They asked me like, do you think it'd be good to buy it? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like that would speed things up. Within 2 weeks, I got let go.
They were like, thank you for that decision.
Like,
that
okay.
Also means that you don't have a job anymore.
Yeah. So, but I went to market. I'm like, I think I had enough followers on LinkedIn that I'm like, man, should I go get another job or should I like go solo for the first time? And a bunch of people were like, dude, this is your moment. What's funny is people will rally around you around a moment like that, but they have no freaking idea if you're actually ready or not. Because I was like, audience growth, that's my thing. I'm going to help people do this as a service. I probably pitched a dozen different companies on it. I got one. only because he was a really good friend of mine. It's like one of those, like, I'll throw you a bone. And it took a couple of months. I ran out of savings, almost to the point where I started going in debt. But right when the first paycheck started coming from that first client, like, I got to move the money out of the debt account. And I'm like, oh gosh, that was close. But it still wasn't working as well as I would have hoped. And it was around December of that time. I was like, man, this audience growth, everybody likes the idea of it, but nobody's really, really willing to like invest in something that just takes too long to pay off. Unlike all the paid media agencies, if you're in the marketing world, you're like, everybody's a paid media agency because it's fast. Spin up some landing pages, spin up maybe some lead magnets, some offers, and just run those ads, man. But I didn't want to do that. I was trying to do it the organic way, the way that everybody, if you could just be patient, you're going to win and beat everybody else who only does paid media, but nobody wanted to pay for it. So I was like, okay. And that's when AI started becoming a thing. I got enough contracts to like make it, but I started investing in AI early because of that. That's when I started looking around for like, what's the next thing? And that's when AI became really clear.
And there was two clarifications I wanted was like the AI investments. Are you thinking educationally investing, or are you talking actually investing in tools that were AI?
There wasn't any courses back then to even invest in for myself. And there was like a handful of YouTubers. So I started watching them, but none of them were really that practical. And none of them were specialized in marketing. And there was only like 5 podcasts at the time that focused on AI and marketing. And they were all very poorly produced. They weren't very good. And they were all brand new. So like, it's like, wow, there just wasn't a lot to go off of. And that's but luckily when I was a podcast host for B2B Growth, a large podcast, I'd taken multiple, because I needed daily content. So I'd taken a thing that I did a deep dive into multiple topics I didn't know anything about. And so I got good at learning things fast. I'm like, if I'm doing an episode every day on a topic and I'm reading 10 books on the topic within a course of a month, then I got really good at learning things that I didn't know, like account-based marketing or thought leadership or demand generation or whatever the topic was of the month. I was like, I'm just going to do this for AI. And that really accelerated things. But it was harder because there weren't a lot of subject matter experts. There weren't a lot of books to read. So I had to go turn over every stone. Most of it in AI, and this is still true, you really just have to go and experiment a lot yourself or take a lot of other people's experiments, replicate it, see what you can learn. In business, that's kind of how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Like, find out what people are saying, go read the book, see what the best practice is, test it. Did it work? Did it not work? What's your spin on it? You'll end up doing that over and over again. You'll develop your own little spin on how it actually works. And the best marketers all do that. They test it and develop their own playbooks.
Yeah. The other thing you said was about organic growth, which is what you do. It's so hard. It's difficult. The temptation to just like pay for something and be like, give me followers, give me people who will engage with my pages, I feel like was so attractive until you did your own thing. Now I'm like, I'd rather have one follower who like likes me, genuinely wants to follow and like connect and talk than just pay for people to like to have 20,000 followers on TikTok or something.
Yeah. In startup life, there's a really vicious cycle I call the quarterly conundrum. It's really funny because startups end up becoming their own, like they create the ecosystem that kills them eventually because they can't focus on long-term results. Their investors want to see big short-term gains. And the reason why the investors want that is because that's what they were pitched, right? They were pitched that. So now this company's on the hook for generating this much growth. So the sales team reverse engineers like, well, in order to hit that number, we need to hire this many people, which means we need, based on these close rates at these different stages of the sales cycle, we got to have this many leads. Hey, marketing, this is what you're on the hook for delivering. You're like, oh, why do you think we could get that many leads? They're like, oh, because that's how many we need in order to meet the targets that we promised that we got money for to hire you. You're like, oh.
That wasn't
you have
in the
no
job
idea
description.
If we can actually hit these or not.
Literally. That's frustrating. And it's, I think it's pretty known, at least anyone who's gone through, spitballing or brainstorming ideas before and like talked to some of the people out there who are in VC and private equity. It's like, I don't know, people who do things for good reasons. They create a business. They want to do these things that actually help people and like do it the right way. Typically, I feel like don't get VC backed or go through seed rounding because it's like, if you do that, you're giving up more times than not everything that's like humanistic about what you want to do, and you're completely going into this thing of like, yeah, I have $5 million and I've already spent it, and I need to have hundreds of thousands of users by tomorrow, and they need to give active feedback, and then by that time we need to have a rollout strategy for the next not 5 years, for the next 1 year, and it needs to be how we're going to triple that number and get a 10 times return so that I can IPO. And it's like, wow, like, cool, you created this thing, but like, where's the value in this now? Because now you're just doing it for the people, for their money, not to actually give them something that works.
Yeah. And no one's happy because you're running yourself ragged for a potential payout that's getting smaller and smaller, possibly by the day, because you keep choosing the short-term tactics over the long-term ones that everybody knows.
Which is why the investors sell fast to get out of it. And then you're stuck with this thing that's like, on paper, it looks lovely. Like it's valued a lot, but we sold it. So now the value's where? And we have to build this thing and they go quiet. And you're like, does that service still exist? It's a vicious cycle. But, let's talk about the good things. So what tools do you use, right? For the average everyday person who hasn't dabbled in this area of AI, what things do you find really helpful for you?
It's hard to get away from ChatGPT. It's funny because a lot of people will tell me like, well, I only use ChatGPT. I'm like, you don't understand. The people, like the advanced users I run with also use ChatGPT daily. They just use it better than you. Like you're not probably, most people aren't even aware that like, even if they're paying for it often, they're not aware that ChatGPT has different models and that the model with the number 3 in it is actually far more powerful than the number with the model 4 on it. Now, ChatGPT screwed up in their naming convention and like royally because one's like 4.0 and the other one's 0.3. Super confusing. And so I get why people are like really confused about that, but they don't even research the tool that they have or what's happened recently to know that there's different ways of using this or that there's different models to pick within the tool itself. So like 80% of my AI time goes into ChatGPT. Now, of course, I have some automation tools that are freaking amazing and some specialty tools that I use regularly too. But ChatGPT honestly gets a lot of it done.
Well, with ChatGPT, how do you learn those things? Like, again, first time user, I'm logging in. I'm like, do I pay the $20 a month? Should I? I'm asking you, should I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT? Is it better?
No, I find that there's a progression to learning how to use AI. The first thing you need to do, if somebody rolls up to me and they're like, look, I haven't done anything. I've done nothing. You're like, okay, first step, give me your phone. We're going to download the ChatGPT app on there. We're going to create an account. And we're just going to load this app. I'm going to make sure you put the right one on your app because I don't know what it is, but especially boomers sometimes they put the wrong app or they take some app that's pretending to be ChatGPT from the App Store. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've seen those. They're like open GPT. And you're like, so make sure you get the right app on there, create the account. And it really becomes about experimentation. And I tell people like, whatever you're putting into Google, just put into ChatGPT from now on. Just see what happens. Even if you're like, you can find it on Google, just start using AI instead. Anytime you have a question, put that into AI. Anytime you're like, hey, I don't know how to solve this thing, ask ChatGPT. Hey, I don't know, I need help fixing my car, my coffee machine, I have a question about why my son's being weird because he's a teenager and he's not responding to me. Yeah, just ask AI and just start doing a bunch of different things, but hold it loosely because there's things where AI will mess up and just evaluate the responses it gives you versus what you used to get from Google, right? Because we used to ask Google all these questions. Google, this is the rash showing up on my body. What does it mean, right? And you get a WebMD article and you're like, well, is this WebMD article what's actually happening to me? Or is it just the best one with SEO? Did this article just get better SEO than the actual thing that is happening to me? AI can do that. So I think putting in the time in the very beginning into experimenting aggressively so that you can get to the point where it's a no-brainer to pay $20 to unlock more features and get more time with it is the beginning. It's just experimenting over and over and over again until you start getting used to what it can deliver. And then you start depending on it to be helpful in your job. For marketers, man, it's obviously like it's great for content in the very beginning. And not just write me a LinkedIn post about marketing, but what it's really good at is taking your original idea and crafting it into something really nice. Like I write probably half of my LinkedIn posts have a little, it's actually a custom GPT, so it's actually got some instructions on how my LinkedIn post should look. But I just dictate out an idea, and then it crafts the LinkedIn post for me. So I don't spend the time actually formatting it and thinking about the hook and the question and how to package it all correctly. It knows generally what my posts look like, and then I just dictate the idea, and it creates it, and I copy and paste it into LinkedIn. That saves a lot of time. So that's about half my posts. I still write a bunch of them. For content, for marketers and content creation, the real trick with AI is don't let AI do your thinking for you, but let it do your repurposing for you. Got a podcast? Throw the transcript in it. Have it come up with the blog post and multiple social posts. You got a blog? Give it that. So let it repurpose things for you. That's kind of the big thing I tell people in the beginning. So if you're not paying for ChatGPT, you're generally a beginner. If you are paying for it, you're probably, unless you're just got a lot of money and you're like, I heard people say this is good. There are some of those people. They're like, I got burned money. I'll just pay for it because I pay for lots of things and don't use them. But generally, people, are careful with their money, and you don't start paying for something unless it's a no-brainer, to get more value out of the thing. You already getting a lot of value out of the free version. Most of us do that with ChatGPT. So if you're at that level, well, you've started to taste it. You got something good going on now. From there, you want to start expanding on the modalities. You're like, you're paying for it. You should probably try the different models within it. You should start leveraging voice mode with camera on. It's amazing if you have a visual problem to solve. Like this is really helpful for anytime you need to solve like a software problem. Like you ever have a troubleshooting problem with your computer, I just take out my phone, show ChatGPT what's going on my screen. I'm like, hey, I'm in Keynote. How do I get this stupid guideline to stop bugging out like that? And it'll be like, oh, yeah, these lines often show up because of this. You can probably find it over in this setting and toggle that off. Why don't we try that? Hey, I'm not seeing it over in that setting. It'll be like, oh yeah, well, another place to try is over here in this setting box. You're like, oh, there it is. Oh my gosh, it fixed the problem because it can see what you see. So it's about using all the different modalities that it has, feeding it images and asking for feedback, having it create images for you, maybe for social content. That's kind of like the next level. From there, it's about building custom GPTs. And that's where you're starting to get advanced, in my opinion, is when you're starting to actually create these they're almost like mini programs, but it requires no code. It's essentially just preloading ChatGPT with instructions that you give it to follow to do whatever you want it to do. And we can go in depth about what custom GPTs are, but I find that that's kind of the progression. Learn what AI can do generally, pay for it, start learning what it can do broadly, and then you're probably ready to start building custom GPTs. So that's kind of like the beginner, intermediate, advanced.
For beginner users. And I think everything you just said is great because that's literally the progression I went through. And I was like, I hope that's what he says. So thank you for doing or saying exactly what I did and what I hope most people walk away with being like, this is how I should do this. But for beginners, one thing that you called out, and I think it's very important, is like this validation of, does that actually make sense, right? These tools that we use today, and maybe they'll be in a better place one day, but they're only as good as the prompt that you give them. And if you're asking a question like, what is this rash? Or why is my son acting weird? It might give you an answer based off of previous things that you've asked. It might give you an answer based off of the most popular searches, right? Like you have to, double down, add context. Like, hey, I like that answer and you might be onto something, but I've also noticed this. And then it's like, it has more context and it can go. I think a lot of people don't do that. My mom is like, how do I make this thing? And then gets the answer and she's telling me about it. And I'm like, that's so wrong.
Yeah.
Like, does no part of that sound wrong to you?
Yes and no. It gets nuanced, but a lot of people when they're first starting it often just use it like Google, which is incorrect. It's almost like using Google like you used to use the yellow pages. Like we had to learn how to use Google. And like I grew up kind of around the time that Google was becoming a thing. So I don't even remember learning it. Like it was in high school or something. I'm like, I don't remember the learning process because I never really used the yellow pages other than you don't look up movie times in there. That was in the newspaper. I remember that though. Do you remember? I don't know how old you are, but like I used to have to look up movie times in the newspaper when movies were showing.
I'm 30, so it wasn't a thing for long, but it was a thing. And I remember this.
Like you were on the very tail end of it then.
Yeah. I was like, I opened the paper and then the next thing Blockbuster dropped and I was like, oh, bye. I'm not going to open the paper ever again.
Yeah. So you just have to relearn what is possible with AI. And I think you're right. Like the main thing that people need to know when it comes to using AI in the beginning is it just needs more context. So you need to not treat it like Google. You need to treat it like a friendly neighbor that happens to know a lot about the thing that you want to ask it about. So what would you say to that person? Let's say you have you have an expert on text message you can text anytime. You're like, hey, this is what's wrong with this. What should I do? What would normally be the context you would give that person in order for them to troubleshoot it with you? So treat it a little bit more like a person because it's artificial intelligence. Like treat it more like a person and it will give you better answers. But I do find, I don't know, there's a lot of things that that are changing rapidly right now. Like prompt engineering is kind of going away for the most part. There's still places where it's still really relevant, but now it's like I don't even try to set like act as an expert marketing paid media specialist and help me craft a campaign. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's the context of the goal. Here's what I'm hoping the outcome will be. It's more of like delegation, like learning how to delegate like you would to a direct report or an expert or a consultant or something like that. But I think you're right about like give it the context it needs and it will be better. But it's even good with ambiguity. Like if you took a picture, the picture, like let's say you took a picture of a rash and uploaded it, the picture is usually a lot of context in and of itself. But of course, the more you can give, like, hey, this is what I was doing when it came, like you would to a doctor, because the doctor is going to ask you that, then that helps too.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely off of the person who's inputting the thing, right? I think there's people out there who are going to use these tools and just automatically assume every first answer they get is accurate. And I've never been that person. So I typically like to be broad in my first question, search, prompt, something. And I'm like, I know exactly what I want from you, but I don't know if I ask it the way I'm thinking right now, I don't know if you'll give me what I want. So let me just start with like this basic thing of like, hey, you know what I did was like, I just got my PMP and I was like, I want to post about it. Can you write me a post? And then I was like, you just wrote me such a generic post that was like, I find this thing so valuable and I actually want to be controversial. I don't know if I find it valuable. So give me the post first. I like these 70% of the parts. And then I actually want you to take, use that, but like refactor it. And I want you to give me why I don't know if it was worth my time, right? Like, and it adds to it. But now I had this beautiful post that was like very well written, exactly the thoughts I had. And it took me all of 2 minutes. It didn't take me 2 days to write this post that I like lost sleep over. I moved on. But then your second phase, your intermediate phase of like exploring the other tools that are out there or the other features on one tool that are out there. There's not a lot that I want to talk about there, right? I think you're absolutely nailing that on the head, and you totally should take your time and play with that. But then your last piece, being an expert, being at that final achievement in this hierarchy is like custom, prompts, custom actions that you're giving it to do. Can you talk about that? Because that's what people I think may resonate with the most is like people say that. What does that even mean? Again, talk to me like I'm dumb. What does that mean to do?
For starters, have you built any custom GPTs?
No, I mean, like, I think I have, but then I don't know. Maybe my custom is different than yours.
Yeah, probably. It's a broad tool, but I feel like it's the Excel sheet of AI these days. It's been out for almost 2 years now. It came out in October 2023. So it's been out. The custom GPTs have been out for a while, but it's one of the game-changing tools that they released and I started using almost immediately that makes the biggest difference for me. So let's see how to explain them.
Do you have a problem that it solved, like that you could also walk us through?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the first custom GPTs I made, I still use regularly all the time. There's 2 different kinds of custom GPTs that I like to make. And again, they're not complicated. If you go over to the left-hand side of ChatGPT, there's this place called custom GPTs. And then you can see a marketplace of all kinds of custom GPTs other people have made that you can tap into. And they do all kinds of things. Ignore all of those. They're fine. I built a bunch of them in there. But what you want to go to is build your own, right? You want to go to my GPTs and then build your own custom GPT. And you'll find that there's a little AI palette. AI can help you build your own custom GPT. That's fine. You want to switch over to the manual mode, where it's essentially you give it a name, maybe a little description that sits under the name, and then you have the instructions. Okay. In the instructions, you can load it with pre-built instructions to do whatever you want it to do, to be whatever you want it to be. And there's 2 different types of custom GPTs. There are general purpose custom GPTs, and there are specialist GPTs. So generalist and specialist. The generalists are actually really easy to make. And every time I'm working with a client, I always build a generalist GPT for them. That is a GPT that's already armed with all the context about their business. The instructions usually look like, hey, you are usually a marketing expert that helps insert business name, help with all kinds of marketing activities. Here's all the context you need to understand about this business to help them better. Market, industry, products, services, positioning, target audience. It has all the basic stuff that you would need to give a new hire for marketing. All just the basics. If you got a style guide or like a brand doc or a persona guide, you upload that into a little place where you can put files that it can access, right? You think about this as like all the stuff you would normally onboard for a role, you put it in these instructions. And the GPT now has the context to better serve you. And so instead of you always uploading this stuff to just a vanilla chat window, it now has the context and can execute it. That's how a generalist GPT works. It's just preloaded with context so that every time you interact with it, you don't have to wonder if it understands the nuances of your business. It knows because you gave it to it way ahead of time. It just saves time. Okay, that's a generalist GPT, and you can use that for all kinds of things. But the first one that I like to do is what I call a brand bot, which is armed on all the things around your brand and business and stuff. That's a really good first place to start. The other kind of GPT I find is even more helpful. It's a little bit harder to make, though, is what I call the specialist GPT. And the specialist GPT usually follows a step-by-step process that is the same process that you would normally follow, but now you're having AI take the time out of it and do it for you. And it accomplishes one thing. That's why it's a specialist. It only does one thing. A generalist can do many things. It can come with blog posts, social content, because it's really just loaded with context. It can do a lot of different things. Specialist, one thing. For an example, one of my favorite ones that I made, and I still actually have a whole, if you want to get the instructions for a specialist GPT, I actually have a whole website dedicated to it, and you can go and find it and get the instructions, load it in yourself to use it or see how it works. But my favorite one is for pre-production for a podcast. So you might be interested in using it. And it is really simple. All I do to kick off the GPT is I push start, and it's like, hey, cool. So we're going to do a podcast episode. Who are we interviewing today? You want to copy and paste their LinkedIn stuff below? And so I copy and paste the LinkedIn profile below, because even if it can search for them, LinkedIn kind of blocks that information sometimes, depending on where they have their account, public, private, whatever. So I just copy and paste it in. It gets the context of the person. And then it starts following the step-by-step instructions. Step 1, go and research the person based on what was copy and pasted in, and go and learn about them, and then write about your summary, and then ask me if that looks accurate. That's step 1. So it goes and executes that. It's like, here's the summary. Does that look good? And I say, yep. Like, cool. What do you want to interview them about? And I'll generally have an idea of what I want to talk to them about. I'll be like, oh, I want to talk to them about A, B, and C. It's like, awesome. Let me turn that into 5 unique angles based on the premise of your show, which is already in the instructions, based on this person's expertise, and based on the kind of the direction you want to go in. Here's 5 different ways we can approach this episode. You're like, oh, yeah, I like number 1. It's like, great, number 1, based on that angle, based on their expertise, based on all this stuff, right? So you're loading the whole thing with the context, and it's getting better and better. Now it writes 10 titles. Right? But it's step by step, walking through the process I would have had to walk through manually. And it would generally take me 30, 45 minutes to prepare for an episode to do this. But walking through this step by step process now takes me less than 5 minutes because it's easy. I'm just saying 1, 2, 3, but change this. And it can roll with all the directions and changes you have in it. So that's a really good example of the specialist GPT that I love using all the time. And if you're in content marketing, chances are you're walking through a similar process every time. You writing a blog post? Well, guess what? You got to give it the general idea, and then pick an angle, and then pick a title, and then write the outline, right? Just like podcasters, after it gives me the title, like, oh, okay, let's write the questions. Great. And I might take out a few of the questions or change them, but it's way easier to react to something than it is to come up with it from scratch. So that specialist GPT, that's all it does. It just walks through the pre-production process every single time. It does nothing else other than that. I have a whole different GPT, and it walks through the post-production process based on the transcript. I give it the transcript, just paste it in. It's like, it already knows what to do. I don't even have to explain the context of like, hey, do this. Here's the context of the show. I just give it the transcript. It already knows what to do. Here's the show notes the way you want it. Show notes look good? I can move on to the next step. Okay, let's come up with the cover art. Bam. Does that look good? Great, let's move on to the next step. And it starts giving me all the assets from it. That's the power of a specialist GPT. Everybody has systems and processes they follow for their jobs. Custom GPTs, these specialist ones, just accelerate the heck out of them. Shoot, if you do it well, it even makes your outputs better.
And better than, having a whole list of prompts that you have saved in like a OneNote or something.
Yeah, I've never done the prompt library thing. I find that if I have one prompt that I have stashed in a library somewhere. That's not true. I actually have another one, but there's a reason for it. For deep research, those you do have to kind of keep up a bit of prompt library because you can't bake those into custom GPTs in the same way yet. But for most AI uses, building custom GPTs is much better than building a prompt library.
Yeah. Can you stack them? Can you do or have you ever stacked them if you know the answer? But could you have like a generalist, GPT that's out there, knows everything about your podcast, knows the angles you do, knows how you talk, knows what's working, what's not working, because you're feeding it that information and saying, here's everything you need to know. Maybe I'm updating that once a month with just the additional information that I have. And then leverage that to say, okay, now do my pre-production notes, which is a very strict process, right? It's 1 through 10. It's the same every single time, but it's also leveraging what your whole podcast is about, right? It has that knowledge to understand what you're doing. It's now stacking those prompts. Do you know if that's possible? Have you done that?
It is possible. I never do it because I just find that it overcomplicates it when you should have just built a custom GPT to walk through the process that you have. What you can do, and this is advanced, and I never see people do it, but it is technically possible. If you go if you have all these custom GPTs made, you can go to a vanilla chat, get a chat started. You can actually @mention the custom GPT and pull in all of its stuff into that one, and then @mention a different one on the next one. So it is possible to string them together. Some people do this, and they'll string, generally what people do, if they're doing it at all, is string a bunch of generalists together that have specialty knowledge about things and will take a different approach on different parts. But I just never find it. I'm never in a situation where I'm like, I need to call this one out for this particular thing. Never happens to me. Because generally, if I'm following a process, then I follow it the same way and it needs the same context every time. So the one custom GPT just gets it done.
Yeah, and podcasting probably isn't the best example to use for that one. I would have to think more about it, but I was just wondering for people who might think about this and noodle with it, one, you should just explore ChatGPT and you could even ask that question to it. But two, if you've ever done it and if you had advice there. Now, with all of this, I think you did mention something when you were talking about just regularly using ChatGPT and being like, I actually don't feed it this information right anymore. The way you use it is by using those custom chats and saying, here's the general, and then here's the more specific that I want you to do this process. But you had said, you don't go in and say, I want you to be an expert marketer and give me that, but like you just feed it what you need it and it gives you a better output. Do you ever validate what's being put out? Like, okay, now review this from the perspective of, a random listener who might come across my podcast. And what do you think about this? Or no? Why not? Is there value there and just not for you?
Maybe. If there probably is value there, I'm just skipping that step.
I was just wondering.
It could be helpful if you build a good persona doc of like what your audience thinks. Actually, it would be helpful. I'm just not doing it. I'm relying for a lot of my content. I'm relying heavily on my own discernment around the topic from having put in so much time into posting on LinkedIn and interacting with people and to know what people want or don't want. So, I mean, that's kind of what makes a creator is you develop a discernment and a sense of taste of what works and what doesn't work. So I'm probably leaning pretty heavily on that, but it probably would be better. In fact, I just read the only book that I like is like really good when it comes to AI that's come out more recently. It's called The AI Driven Leader. He does it all the time. And it's challenged me recently to like want to get more feedback from AI on what's created from different people's perspectives or different persona docs perspectives that are based on real people, So no, it is a helpful thing. I'm just not doing it very much.
Since leaving corporate America, have found, and not by choice, have found that feedback loop is something that was really missing from stuff that I'm working on because I'm not now sitting in a room with, 5 people who can give me feedback constantly about the things I'm doing. I was finding I want to create this TikTok or I want to make this YouTube video, but how will it resonate with people if it was a business who might want to sponsor me or work with me? And I genuinely was like, I don't know what they would think about the content that I'm sharing. I don't know if I'm saying the right things. I don't know if I'm like pitching this from an angle that they would be like, wow, that's interesting. I want to work with this person. So I started doing that a few months ago, where not on everything, right? Because then you could just get into this massive feedback loop that doesn't end. But I will get to working through the problem, working to my solution. Once I have my solution where I'm like, that's what I want, I do oftentimes just like, hey, give me feedback on this now. Like, imagine you are so-and-so, or I'm targeting businesses that are, this demographic. Could you just look at this and tell me what's good, what's missing, what recommendations do you have? I don't always go with them, but it is nice to know, like, oh, those were perceptions that I did not think about because I thought I was about to eat this up and I missed this, a little bit. So that's just one thing I was curious if you did. Now, you've shared so much amazing information. We've only talked about ChatGPT. We don't have the time, at least on this episode, to talk about everything. But if you were just like name dropping other tools you've used, whether it's specialized tools or not, what tools would you just throw out there to be like, go play with these? Like, they're fun. Just go see what you can do. Who cares?
Suno is amazing for music. Like, you have no idea how good AI music is. If you're like, AI music, what? Just go to suno.com and start listening to what people make. And they're making it with single prompts, just FYI. And trust me, you could literally put in like the terms and conditions from some website into the lyrics and say, make it a fun punk song, and it will sound reasonably good. You'll be like, dang, I didn't know terms and conditions can sound so good. It's that good at making music. So I use it. I've even published albums on it. It's through to Apple and Spotify, taking what I did in Suno. So that's a fun thing. But you can use that for marketing and business, but it's honestly more of a fun thing than it is a business thing. And then HighLevel as a CRM and marketing automation system. If you're in marketing or a small business, it's fantastic because the voice tech on it's so good. Like, their conversational marketing. The fact that I can call in and it sounds reasonable. I mean, it still says it's going to be an AI assistant, but it's like it can actually text them information. It can follow up via email. It can book meetings. It can answer questions. I'm like, my gosh, in my past career, it used to be a massive problem to have like too much demand and not enough sales time to like follow up with people. It's like fixes that as like a frontline, like inbound call, or maybe like outbound, but it's like they fill out the form and then they're following up within 5 minutes kind of a thing to answer questions. I'm like, that's such a golden tool. HighLevel is obviously really robust and has lots of features in it, but its conversational marketing has really gotten so good recently that's a major tool I'm spending a lot of time on now.
And those are there other tools that you use in your everyday life that like maybe aren't as interesting to everyone, but like you're leveraging?
NAN I'm using regularly. That's AI kind of like automation tool, but it's fairly technical. Like, I tell everybody who's interested in AI automation, I'm like, don't do any AI automation until you've built at least a dozen custom GPTs. Those are like putting in the reps of stuff you're going to need to know and know well in order to get into the automation world, because it's complicated. It's mainly made for developers, and it's hard to use. And I'm fairly technical, and it's still hard. So that's the other big one. But outside of that, there's like other specialty tools, like Midjourney's kind of interesting for video right now. And then VO3, if you got some cash to throw down and want to make some videos, you're like, it's hard to VO3 with this voice tech, and its videos are really good. I would be spending a lot more time on that if I was doing more paid media and needed little video clips for ads. I'd have a VO3 subscription for sure, and I'd be trying to figure out different ways to use that to come up with ads, because it freaking is powerful.
And how do you find these? Like, as someone who, I know you're in the space, you're reading a ton of books, you're on LinkedIn, you're posting, you're sharing, you're reading. But if you were just like, I have a 9-to-5, I have kids, I don't spend time in like the entrepreneurship world, how would you even discover these other tools that might be helpful?
Yeah, there's 2 channels I would recommend. One is a podcast and is better for business leaders. It's a little bit more executive sounding. It's going to be a little bit more boring for that reason depending on where you're at. It's called The Artificial Intelligence Show by Paul Reitzer and Mike Kaput are the hosts. And it's probably the biggest like AI business show on the market right now. So I listen to them every week. They have a good show, but they talk about all the different ins and outs, and they go a little bit deeper into the AI world, the shenanigans that happens in the back scenes with OpenAI and Sam Altman and all that stuff. Most of that's like complete waste of time for most people, but it's still a good place to learn about what's happening. The other one that's more fun is Matt Wolf on YouTube. He's kind of like the biggest YouTuber covering AI, and he has a weekly roundup he does every Saturday of like, this is what happened in AI this week. Here's what you need to know. And it's a very general overview, but he covers all the cool tools and what's coming and all that kind of stuff. I take about like 5% of what he talks about and then actually like go and explore it. Otherwise, it's just FYI, good to know. And then some of it's like, oh, that one, I should dig into that one. But most of the time, I just kind of absorb it every single week as like just to stay in the know about what's going on. But those are the 2 channels I would recommend that are the best top-notch ones to follow.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that information. And I always ask question of the podcast, are you open to people who resonate with the things that you've shared today, connecting with you on LinkedIn or sending you a connection request?
Of course. That's why I'm here, man. That's why I say yes to this.
Big thanks to Dan Sanchez for joining us and breaking down the real opportunities in AI. If you're on the job hunt, don't forget my collab with jobhire.ai. You can get 30% off on all plans through August 2025 with the code DRAY30, DRAY30. Check the footer of this episode for the details to make sure you get your promo. Whether you're experimenting with ChatGPT for the first time or exploring custom GPTs to streamline your workflow, his advice makes AI feel approachable and practical. If this conversation resonated with you, make sure to connect with Danchez on LinkedIn and check out his podcast, The AI-Driven Marketer. And as always, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next story of transformation here on the Reboot Era.